Hello, Bournemouth fans. Tomorrow, Cherries travel up the country to face a table-topping Champions League side in Aston Villa. How times have changed. Not so long ago, what was it, about 4 or 5 seasons ago, both Bournemouth and Villa were straddling that dreaded dotted line of relegation. But Villa ended up above it and Bournemouth just below it. Just don't mention goal line technology. Now, though, both teams seem in a good place. Relative, of course, to each club's size. Villa ripping it up in elite competition, beating Bayern at home, sitting in the top 4 of the Prem. Bournemouth pushing for top 10, beating Arsenal at home. And after 8 games, looking up rather than down. It's a good place to be. And look, the number 8 seems quite apt today because on this day, 10 years ago, Bournemouth went up to Birmingham City and absolutely battered them in one of our best away days that we've had in a long time. And look, if you're watching this video and you're a big fan of that scoreline, whether Villa or Bournemouth, give this video a like because it really does help. And look, a big shout out also to our new subscribers on the channel. We really appreciate your support. After the game, there's fan cams, there's a vlog the next day, and also a second look where we go into detail. But this one is all about the opposition. Yesterday, of course, you'll have seen that we got Luke Robinson's thoughts on where he thought Bournemouth and Villa would finish this season. And also I've done a chat on his channel. There's a card at the top, so I talk all things Bournemouth on Up the Villa pod. But now it's time to get to the nitty gritty as I ask Luke 10 challenging questions about his club right now. Luke from Up the Villa podcast, how are you?
Yeah, good, mate. Great to finally be on your channel. You've done a preview on ours, so yeah, all good.
So look, we've got some challenging questions, some of which might be difficult, some of them might be really, really easy for you. But look, I'm going to start proper brown nosy, but there's something really likeable about Aston Villa at the moment. You're clearly enjoying where you're at. Fans are loving the ride. So with it all going so well, what's your biggest fear?
Boy, the big fear is a big fear, and it is Unai Emery not being our manager anymore. I think we're a long way from that being the case. I think in the media there gets a lot said about, he'd go to Man United or he'd go here or he'd take this job. And I think at Villa he's got absolutely everything that he needs, complete control. We have sort of a partnership with a club that he owns in Spain. So he's really tight with Villa. But from a personal level, I haven't really seen much good stuff as a Villa fan in my lifetime, and this is the best it gets. And not only are the results good, but it feels like we've got a manager that is so elite. It's like our Fergie, it's like our Klopp. This is our time where we've got this guy that's just so influential that I just don't ever want him to leave. But he will leave eventually, but I just don't want to think about it. So that would be my answer. And I imagine that every single Villa fan would probably say the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, Antonio Early had his press conference this morning, confirmed that we're going to be without Luis Sinisterra. He's not going to travel, but he could be available for Man City. Definitely Brentford. Alex Scott, he faces a spell on the sidelines after he had surgery to repair an injury he picked up on his knee this week. But in terms of Villa, either through injury or maybe a departure, who's the player you would hate to lose the most right now?
It's a tough one because we've got a lot of good players that are all playing very, very well. It's a real tough question. I could go with a few, but it's so. I'd say my favourite player then, who I would be very disappointed to see, would be Pau Torres. I think he's so crucial to the way that we play, and he's been so influential in us getting our possession-based football, playing out from the back. He's been with Emery at Villarreal. He's only ever played for Villarreal, so it was a complete culture change coming to England, playing in the Premier League. He's won the Europa League with Emery, and I think he's brought quite a lot to this Villa team. I remember the first game that we played against Bayern Munich in the Champions League, and you know when they do that little pan across, Every Villa player was just stood there, and he was the only one that was bouncing up and down like he was ready for it. And I think he's massive for Villa. So I would say him, but it's not, you could say Watkins if you take his goals out this team, then you could say Tielemans. But yeah, Pau for me, because I'd say he's my favourite player.
Villa fans, I sense they're extremely grounded, but we know what happens when your team starts doing well. We've seen it with Newcastle, of course. They reach the Champions League. The bar is naturally raised. Fans' expectation levels then start to rise. So what would represent a disappointing season for Villa then this season?
A disappointing one would be no European football. So going into this season, it's like, what's the expectation? It's going to be difficult to get Champions League football again, having to play in the Champions League as well. We know that there's so many different teams, but I think for Villa, it's vitally important that we keep getting European football. And I think that is massive on our journey with Emery as well. So if we got Europa League and went really deep in the Champions League, that'd still be a good season, because we're still playing in Europe. And I think that's just massive. So any form of European football is huge, which would see us just keep challenging and competing at the top. But having seen us so far this season, I do think we can try and get top four again. I think that's on. And I think, we've just got to just see how it goes. But I think, disappointment would be no European football.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an excellent season. I've watched Villa a lot, and it's been really fluid at times, but there have been some performances that maybe haven't lived up to expectations. But if you could single out one performance this season that represents the best of Villa, which performance would you say that is?
I would say Bologna, Champions League, the game that we played on Wednesday. Wednesday. No, Tuesday, Wednesday. I don't know when you play. There's that many games. You lose track of when you're playing. But
we've just got one every week, so it's easy for us.
But it's the Bologna game, because we were really, really good. We completely controlled the game. We nullified them completely. The ball just kept coming back to us. We kept attacking. Our shape was good. And we played some very, very good football, and we probably should have scored more goals. So I think that's probably the biggest one, because I think we're known from last season that any European team can pose anybody problems. And if you look at it and you say, it's only Bologna, but we lost to Legia Warsaw. We couldn't beat Zrinjski Mostar. We lost to Olympiacos. So to do that in the Champions League is really, really good. And I think we're getting better now as a team. I think last season, November, December was when we really started playing our best season. We beat Man City and we beat Arsenal. And I think we're starting to get to that period where we're starting to play well as well, not just win games.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love seeing what Unai Emery's done. And it's quite interesting because the two sides playing on Saturday, they benefit from the most goals and assists from substitutes in the Premier League this season. So for Villa, it's been 4 goals, 2 assists from subs. For Bournemouth, 3 goals and 3 assists. Like, it seems like Basque managers view football differently, not necessarily starting with your best 11, sometimes ending that way. But what do you think makes managers like Iraola and Emery so different to the rest in the Premier League?
I think they've been built on a philosophy and a culture and a style. And I think probably when they were doing their badges that they've learned a lot and they stick to their principles of what they want to do. But I think they've also got the ability to change. And I think from where they come from as well, they just come across as hardworking, nice people. And I think not only does tactics play a big part in football, but it's what they can do on the training pitch and coaching. And I think that can get overlooked. And I think what you're starting to see as well is that your manager can improve players. And I think that's also huge, rather than just saying, this player's no good, you'll need replacing in a year's time. But the ability to nurture and coach is massive in football. And I think keeping the squad hungry, so like we're talking about the bench, and I just think they get it. And I think that they're able to work with the players a lot more. So I just think they're both really good, very driven, hard working, and I think altogether they become like really good managers, and I think that they're only going to succeed.
Yeah, progression in the Premier League and Champions League is going so well for you at the moment. But I'm going to put a hypothetical question to you, right? It's the end of the season. There's a game to go in the Premier League. You're a point behind Man City. You've got to play them, right? But also, you're in the Champions League final and you're facing Manchester City. You can only win one. What would you rather win more, the Premier League or the Champions League? Sorry to do this to you, man.
So, no, basically, we've already won the European Cup. And we've already won league titles. But I'm probably going to say the Premier League because I think it's harder to win the Premier League because of how many good teams. And we're talking about, you're having to win and play well in 38 games. Every game in the Premier League is really difficult. We've already won the European Cup. And I think when you go back to when we won the European Cup all those years ago, to get into the European Cup, you had to win the league. So I think winning the league is just absolutely massive and how difficult it can be. So, yeah, I'd say Premier League would be something that I've dreamt of winning all my life. So I'd go Premier League.
Yeah, and I was speaking to Dan Potts from AFTV and Football's 12th Man podcast on our previous preview when we played Arsenal. And he said, when you look at the list of teams that have won the Champions League, they're not necessarily always the best. Whereas you can say that when you've won the Premier League, you are the best, domestically. So, yeah, I take your point on that. And look, I brought up Man City for a reason, because obviously Aston Villa, they were very much, centred around Jack Grealish until his move to Manchester City. And he's done all right there. But another hypothetical question for you. Would you take him back? And if so, how would he fit in?
I wouldn't take him back. And that's not because I don't like him. It's not because I dislike him. He's probably one of the best players I've ever seen play for Villa. But I just think where we are right now, we don't need him. So you can have sentiment of big players coming back and it would be brilliant. But the dynamics changed. When he played for Villa, he absolutely ran the show. It was like Jack Grealish FC. We're not that team anymore. And he has won a lot, and he's, getting towards the latter years of his career, I guess. And he's not as young as what he was before. So I don't think I would know, because I think the money it would cost, that it could go elsewhere. And I think we don't need him anymore. And I think we just, the balance doesn't need to be there for us. But, I say this as a Villa fan, I do really like him. And I'm not one of those fans that boo him every time he comes back. I wish him well. It hurt a little bit when he did leave, but I think now I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, I was taking a look at your last 4 games, and you got 5 different goal scorers, 3 for Watkins, 2 for Rodgers, a Duran, a Konza, and an own goal as well. So goals are spread through the team. So you're right. There's probably not that reliance maybe that there once was. So look, the claret and blue side of the city seems in a good place. Now, a question about the others around you. I mean, Birmingham are doing all right. Wolves, not so much. 2 questions in one, really. Does Birmingham seemingly being on the rise worry you? And does Wolves being at the foot of the table bring you joy?
You said these questions were going to be difficult. No, I'm not bothered about Birmingham. I'm not bothered about them, no. I mean, the irony of it is they're having their best period in years, and they're still having to look at Villa at the top of the Champions League. So it's not like they're doing good and we're doing bad. We're still outdoing them, even though they're doing well. So, they're doing what they're doing and we're doing what we're doing. Wolves, I like Wolves. I want West Midlands football to do well, but I don't rate Gary O'Neill, if I'm being honest. I don't think he's a great manager. I think he's been just found out a little bit. I think it's got too difficult for him, and he's really struggling at the minute. And I think, they've only got 1 point this season, and they've got Brighton up this weekend, which is going to be a really difficult game. So, he's going to have to pick up form quickly. So, it's going to be difficult for him because, teams like Leicester, I think Leicester have already won 2 games now. So, they're a good chunk in front of Wolves. So, they're going to need to sort themselves out pretty quickly.
So you wouldn't take Jack Grealish back. But look, you've seen a bit of Bournemouth this season. If you had to, which Which Cherries player would you take tomorrow for Aston Villa?
That's Semenyo. Like, he's
so many
good.
people say that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just so, and it's not just the obvious choice because you've got really good players, but just what he does, how he can drift inside. He's got that little bit of, just got, you know, when a player's got something about him, he's that player, and I enjoy watching him play, and I think he's so useful within your system. And on our right, I know he can play left or right, but our right at the minute, now Diaby's gone and Bailey's not at his best, I think he would really suit our team. So I'd probably say Semenyo.
Super. Well, look, 10 questions. I think you successfully completed that assignment, Luke. That was absolutely superb. And I'm not going to do predictions because we all know what happens. You go for a Villa win. I go for a Bournemouth win, maybe a draw. But look, tell people a little bit about your channel because it is superb, mate. It's really good.
Yeah, we're called Up the Villa on YouTube, and we've got different variety of content, match previews. I go in depth tactically on the opposition. We do reactions to the press conference, debriefs, in-depth analysis. So we try and do a bit of everything that's a bit different. Fan cams. So hopefully those are happy fan cams after the game the weekend. If they're not, then you can all turn up and watch us. Probably not be that happy. So I know football fans get enjoyment from that. So just check us out. And we did our preview. So go and check Sam out on our channel as well.
Brilliant, Luke. Thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Up the Villa.
Oh, great to chat to Luke from Up the Villa podcast. Honestly, their channel is so good. It's a relatively new one, actually, in kind of Aston Villa internet land or whatever. But their growth has been phenomenal. And that's down to the work that Luke puts in. He's the main man on that, and you can see how much he works. And I've seen the tactical insight videos. I don't know how he does it. The commitment it takes. So make sure you pop over and give his videos a like, but also subscribe to it as well because they're an excellent fan base. And look, we're not going to be shaking hands too much before the game because come on, we need to get that a bit of aggression and get the 3 points. It's funny, like I said on his channel, I said, like, sometimes you go to the casino and don't gamble, kids, but it always ends on black, it lands on black. So this can't go on forever. At some point, it'll land on red. It may be a green, it may be a draw, but you never know. This could be the match that sees Aston Villa undone, but we've played them and seen them after European games before, and hangovers, they don't seem to have them. So yeah, it could be an interesting one, but either way, it's going to be a cracking game. Safe travels if you're going up north, because that's what it is for us this weekend, and we look forward to seeing you inside Villa Park. Up the chairs, and we'll see you up there. Come on.